We're back with Weighing In with Travis Hartman. This is episode 148. That over there is the talent, Travis Hartman, aka Weekend Trav. I am B Money, the producer. Breaking news, Weekend Trav. Canelo Alvarez and PBC have mutually parted ways, which opens the door up for his opponent around Cinco de Mayo timeframe this year. But that's a lot to unpack right there. Weekend Trav, break that down for us here. Canelo Alvarez, PBC parting ways. Now looking back towards Matchroom, what do you have to say about that?
I mean, they say it's mutually parting ways, but it kind of wasn't. It was more so PBC couldn't secure the $35 million that Canelo requires to fight. And then on top of that, they couldn't secure an opponent for Canelo, which made them breach their contract with Canelo. So even though they kind of claim it's mutually parting ways, it's not really. It was more so that PBC, as we all know right now, they've been struggling ratings wise, money wise. So they had to let Canelo go essentially. And with that being said, Canelo is rumored to fight Jaime Munguia, who Weekend Trav said right after the John Ryder fight. But again, it's rumored. Mike Coppinger is usually right, but it still hasn't been announced by Canelo or DAZN or the platform that he fights on. So we don't know.
So for those following on social media, that Michael Benson had posted this that according to at Chava ESPN is that Canelo Alvarez has now decided to fight Jaime Munguia on May 4th in Las Vegas. Once again, we hear rumors all the time that end up panning out to be nothing. There was also the rumor several days ago that a $55 million contract was put in place for Canelo to fight Benavidez, which obviously was debunked right away. So it's a matter of sources, I guess. Michael Benson's usually pretty good and he vets that stuff out, but we shall see. Weekend Trav. Jaime Munguia. Well, the PBC stuff, understandable. So they had a weird deal here with Amazon where I don't even know what's going to go on. Who's even going to fight on these cards anymore? And they're still all pay-per-view. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, PBC wise. That thing seems to be going down the toilet. But anytime people say that about PBC, they seem to find their next life and, lifeline, and all of a sudden they're still in business. So I don't know. That's a different topic, but let's talk about the potential opponent here, Jaime Munguia. We've talked about that as a potential for Canelo coming up at some point down the road. What do you think here? Do you think, I don't know, the way that we saw Munguia last fight, which was a solid fight, but we both agreed that that's not the kind of opponent that's going to give Canelo many problems, I don't think. So what do you think about that? What do you think about that coming May 4th if it is Jaime taking on Canelo?
Well, here's the deal that I like this fight because the only other option that they were talking about was Edgar Berlanga,
Oh, geez.
who, who, for his credit, did have a very good win over the weekend here in Orlando. I'm going to give him credit for that because we talked about it on the show. We were like, he's running out of opportunities. He needs to have a big splash. And he knocked the guy out in the 6th round here at Carib Royale with most fab or Box Lab Promotions, Matchroom Boxing, Eddie Hearn. So he did try his best to cement himself in that talk, and it was an exciting knockout. However, B Money, this is no disrespect to Berlanga. This is Weekend Trav keeping it as real and as to the point as possible. Edgar Berlanga is not on the level of Canelo Alvarez. He's not even on the level of David Benavidez. He's not on the level of Jaime Munguia. So with those two options, I'm actually very happy with Munguia because he's got youth on his side. He's got a big Mexican following as well. He's also promoted by Oscar De La Hoya, who's got a little bit of a beef with Canelo Alvarez. I think this fight sells better, in my opinion, than Edgar Berlanga.
Oh, yeah.
But also, the matchup wise, I think it's a better matchup. Do I think Munguia is going to beat Canelo? No. But we've seen Canelo falter a little bit down the stretch here. And I'm not saying that Munguia is like Bivol by no means, but styles make fights. Munguia has a lot of he's got a lot of age on his side. He's a warrior. He can take a punch, which also would be a disadvantage for him at the same time as an advantage because Canelo can punch. But long story short, I am okay with Jaime Munguia versus Canelo Alvarez for May. Now, if we fast forward to September for Canelo, I wouldn't be happy unless it's one other person.
which would be Benavidez.
David Benavidez.
Yeah, I just don't see that happening. Is there somebody?
I know.
Is there a candidate we're not seeing? Is there somebody coming out of left field to potentially take on Canelo here in May? Is there someone we're not expecting?
You know what? Not in the super middleweight division because that's the 168-pound division. I don't think there's anybody that I think at this point, Canelo and them have to name somebody that's been talked about because I think
Mm,
that's on the radar now. I think that's on the reporters are reporting all this. If they throw somebody out of left field that nobody's really heard of, nobody's really talked about, it's not going to be good
right.
because they've waited this long. They've been through all of this. They rumored the Charlos. They rumored Munguia. They rumored Berlanga. They rumored all these guys. I mean, David Morrell Jr. is also out there, but he really hasn't been in the talks. But he would be another guy that if he got that fight, that's a big fight. So I don't think we're going to see. I don't think. But B Money. What do we know about boxing? Is I don't believe anything until they step foot in the ring the night of the fight. So right now, I'm gonna settle on Munguia. I called Munguia earlier this year. I thought it was the best possible fight, in my opinion, for May, with the exception of David Benavidez in September. But I think Munguia was a solid fight from the get go. I hope it gets made. It's rumored, but we know how that goes.
So interesting here, and not saying this is what's going to happen in the next fight or even two fights, but Canelo Alvarez being technically the free agent, technically broken away from PBC, and rumored to be linking back up with Matchroom. There's also a potential other free agent, it sounds like, in the big time ranks, one Terence
Yep.
Crawford. And I know those two names have been thrown in the same conversation before. A lot would have to come into play with weight and things like that to get those two potentially to go toe to toe. But wouldn't that be interesting weekend, Trav? Two now free agents, both calling the shots. Talk about a real money fight. Talk about big time, record breaking money fight, I would think. If those two, maybe in a year or so, all of a sudden we're talking May 2025, that being the super fight of super
Yeah.
fights.
Well, you brought up a good point, and you just made me think. Um, it's not really something coming out of left field because it has been rumored that Canelo and Crawford were rumored to fight. Nobody ever confirmed it, but Crawford called Canelo. Crawford wants to fight. So I'm going to tell you, uh, if there is something crazy that comes out of left field, I'm going to tell you right now that it's going to be Crawford.
Wouldn't
Crawford
that be,
versus Canelo.
man?
So if that happens in May, that would be insane because that's insane. It is, but I don't think it will. But if that's my dark horse that comes out of nowhere,
Big time. Yeah.
if the Munguia doesn't happen, I don't think it's anybody else except Crawford.
I think it would go in this order, more than likely Munguia. And then if that doesn't really shake out, more than likely Eddie Hearn feels like he has to throw Berlanga to the wolves a bit and just be done, or at least get something accomplished there by his big time signing last year of Berlanga. But if they can make Crawford happen, man, could you imagine that? That, and then I think what a couple weeks later is the big heavyweight clash if that actually happens between Usyk and Fury. I mean,
Yeah, May
that's
18th.
May. I mean, that's all of May. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? What will
That's insane,
that
right?
could possibly be, right? So
Ah,
interesting stuff, but that is breaking today. Which is it's today's Monday, on the 26th of February. Canelo Alvarez and PBC part ways, and it's rumored to be his next opponent in May on May 4th in Las Vegas, Jaime Munguia. So we shall see how that plays out over the next handful of days, and whether or not Canelo's camp actually confirms those rumored reports. Because the one thing they're good about is rejecting claims. We haven't heard them come out and say that's not happening yet. So that tells me, as an investigative journalist, that if they have not denied such claims, that it's potentially in the works, though not finalized.
I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I'm not saying it's not
Yeah,
going to happen.
yeah. So you're telling me there's a chance. You're telling me there's a chance. 30% of the time it works every time. Weekend Trav, we shall see. Make it end up being pretty solid here. But
Yeah.
let's change it up a bit. We got the breaking news. Everyone's talking about it, but let's change it up again to look backwards in the rearview mirror. We mentioned one Edgar Berlanga, 6-round knockout there here in Orlando, Florida at the Caribe Royale. on the event with Matchroom as well as Box Lab. So the card itself overall, top to bottom, very good. Everyone's pretty entertained. It was a good show here in Orlando. What about your thoughts there on the rest of the show here in Orlando?
Yeah, B Money, somebody that we've talked about a little bit, Antonio Vargas.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest knock on him is that he hasn't been stopping people once he hurts them. He got a knockout stoppage, B Money.
He did. He did.
Congratulations to Antonio Vargas. Way to hurt the guy and then go in and finish him. That was phenomenal. And of course, Berlanga KO'd McCrory. Pedrog McCrory is his name. 18. He was 18-0 with 9 KOs going into the
Yeah, no
fight.
slouch.
Yeah, no slouch at all. That's why, like I said, we said it on the podcast. We were being honest, and I was like, his opportunities are shrinking, and he needs a statement win. And in my opinion, this was the biggest possible statement he could have made with that opponent in front of him. He couldn't have done any better to try and get a bigger fight, try and get a Canelo fight, which it's not going to happen, I don't think. But he did everything he's supposed to do. Okay, to get that fight, and he finished the guy in pretty spectacular fashion. And of course, Box Lab delivered again with a card from top to bottom. We had
What?
my
Yeah, I was going to say a guy that you had as your,
yeah.
prospect. I don't know if we call him prospect of the year, but someone to pay attention to here in this year, 2024. Andy Cruz, the Cuban sensation, I believe,
Mhm.
he was fighting there as well. So he got put to the test a bit weekend. Trav, you're a guy that you're looking, to follow into this year. So he's now 3-0. Looks like he moves to 3-0. So that's Andy Cruz. Talk to me about
Yep.
that.
2020 Olympic gold medalist out of Cuba, if I'm right. He won the WBA Continental Latin American lightweight title, which is the 135-pound division. And in my opinion, since everybody is moving out of that division, this kid in about a year or so could probably contend for a world title, which is insane because he's 3-0. So I mean, good for them for getting him on this card too. Eddie Hearn really has been delivering pretty solid here in Orlando, at least with the Matchroom boxing and Box Lab and DAZN. All of those guys coming together has delivered some pretty good higher level profile fights.
Mm.
And I think overall that card from top to bottom delivered. They did phenomenal job of promoting it. Berlanga delivered. When the main event can end in a knockout, it kind of wraps up the whole night, puts that bow on it, and is like, we did the job. And they did a great job. Box Lab, Matchroom Boxing, Eddie Hearn, all of those guys there at Crib Royale, bringing boxing back to Central Florida, baby.
Yeah, there you go. So, not too shabby weekend, Trav. Listen, sometimes we go through these episodes and we're kind of looking back at kind of replaying, almost like kind of re-breaking down the fights that happened. We just did that. But it's nice to have some breaking news here and things going forward. I was also just reading, just to try to change it up again. We're going back to Terence Crawford here, my comments. I was just reading here, also posted, it looks like there's been a possibility that WBO president, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he had spoken with Terence Crawford about possibly moving up to super welterweight for his next fight. And so
Yeah.
it looks like he could use his status as WBO super champion to automatically become WBO mandatory against Tim Tszyu.
Yeah. Tim Tszyu. Yeah.
There you go. Who's supposed to be fighting Keith Thurman, I think, here
Yep.
coming up at the end of the month, so or end of
Yep.
March.
March
Uh,
31st, I believe.
So interesting, the going back to what we were talking about, potentially moving up in weight, okay, over time. Maybe not in time for May, but if he continues to kind of progress up a little heavier, we're starting to get into Canelo Alvarez territory. That could be very exciting for boxing fans everywhere.
I mean, this is a historic run.
This is
If
what we
Terence
want.
Crawford moves up again to 154, Tim Tszyu is the champion.
Yes.
If Tim Tszyu, actually, to be fair, whether Keith Thurman or Tim Tszyu, whoever wins, the winner of that should fight Terence Crawford. Okay, Crawford, you don't gotta go to 168, brothers. Take a little pit stop at 154,
Mhm.
which is super welterweight or light middleweight, whichever one you want to say. And then you could even stop at middleweight, brother. And then you could go to super middleweight. And we could talk about what B Money said. We could talk about a Cinco de Mayo clash next year,
2025.
2025, with Canelo Alvarez. However, that's saying that Canelo keeps winning all the way through there, because if he bites off more than he can chew against a David Benavidez in September and he struggles or loses,
If
then
he
that'll
fights,
derail everything.
I don't know. If he fights a Benavidez, which Benavidez, I mean, he's not. I mean, he's not exactly just all powerful. I mean, he's lost twice, correct? Or he was stripped, I think. Correct me.
Benavidez is undefeated.
I thought he had been stripped or something along those lines.
He's undefeated, but he might have been stripped, but he's undefeated.
Twice. I think
He's
wasn't one
undefeated.
PEDs or something like that too.
I don't think so. Not
Hmm.
David Benavidez. There's another
Hmm.
there's a Jose, there's another Benavidez, but there's a couple brothers, so maybe it was the brothers, but I'm pretty sure, B Money, that it wasn't David Benavidez.
Yeah, looks
He's been
like
he's been
it's
solid so far. He's
okay. David Benavidez now has been stripped of WBC super middleweight title twice, once for a positive coke test and once for missing weight by like 3 pounds. And this was back when.
Was that wasn't super middleweight though, was it?
This was a while ago. So 2020, he missed weight. And then another time was because of coke. So I mean,
Was that all yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, there's nothing else to say. But I was reading that back about 5 or 6 days ago. I'm like, okay, well, listen, he's not exactly perfect.
Was he, but who is at this point?
Exactly. So he's for us trying to create this as a super matchup between Benavidez and Canelo Alvarez. Okay, there are little holes in there too. That no one really wants. That everyone's just glancing over on Benavidez just because we see him through the lens of fighting Canelo. We don't
So
see. Go ahead.
you're right. So I never knew he was actually the world champion at one time, and he was. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
Because he doesn't
2020.
have, yeah, because he doesn't have the titles anymore, because Canelo has all four of those titles. However, Benavidez did at one time own the WBC super middleweight title. It was vacant. He won a vacant title, and then he rematched the guy, beat him again. Then he knocked out Jillian Love with the second round KO. Then he knocked out Anthony Durrell with a ninth round KO. And then he went on to defend it again against Aguilar. And then I think that was the one that he might have got stripped after that, because then his next two fights were not for the title. So yeah, I think in 2020, you're right. I think he got stripped of the titles after that. So you're 100% correct. I actually did not realize that he was a world champion. So you were 100% correct on that. David Benavidez has been stripped of that title because he did used to own it, and I think he defended it like 4 or 5 times. So
Yeah,
that's crazy. That's crazy. I didn't know
in
that.
2018, I don't know if it was in the same weight class, but he also had some title back then too, and it was stripped because of a positive coke test. So
Yeah, it was the WBC title. He won. He won it. He won it, got it stripped, and then 2 fights later fought for it and won it back again.
it's just interesting. I don't know, Weekend Trav. It's one of these where the internet has created this story that the Canelo has to fight Benavidez to prove
Yeah.
something, and in reality, okay, well, let's look at the other guy too. Yes, very, very high quality and former champion, but there's also holes there too. And don't
Yeah.
make it seem like it's an all or nothing, like he has to fight him.
Exactly right.
Will he? I don't know. Isn't Benavidez still a PBC guy too? Isn't he? Isn't he over with them?
He is, as long as that contract lasts.
Until they dissolve, I guess.
Well, this is what I want to address as well. I'm tired of seeing it. Somebody even commented our Instagram account. Follow us at Weighing In with Travis Hartman. We update a lot of stuff on the Instagram account. I updated that the rumor was Canelo is supposed to be fighting Jaime Munguia,
Mm.
and somebody calls him Canelo the Ducker or something like that. Guys, you could say what you want about Canelo, but I think of all guys right now in the sport, he hasn't ducked anybody. He's fought everybody. And you made a good point. What's the big deal about David Benavidez? Because he's got a little bit of a checkered past, a little bit of a checkered being 100%, missing weight, getting drug violations. So let's just keep it real. Canelo has been solid since he was 16 years old, and now he's into his 30s. And the guy has fought everybody, literally Hall of Famers, the greats, everybody. This guy is not ducked in. In fact, he went all the way up to light heavyweight twice and fought those guys. So, don't tell me that Canelo is ducking David Benavidez. Do I want to see that fight? Yes. But shut up. He's not ducking David Benavidez. Leave that crap at the door. Canelo is a fighter. This guy is not afraid of anybody. And as a pro boxer, I can tell you that right now. We are not afraid to step in the ring with anybody. Period. I got beat by Terence Crawford. I wasn't afraid to step in the ring with him. Although, if you ask me to do it again, I might have second thoughts, but I still wasn't afraid to step in the ring. Canelo Alvarez is not afraid of David Benavidez. So stop saying it. That is this the media running with it. Good promotion by David Benavidez to get a Canelo fight, but don't let me hear somebody tell it to my face that Canelo Alvarez is ducking anybody.
Like
Not yet. It's too early.
Benavidez's camp is trying to will it into existence. Because
Exactly.
that whole $55 million rumor started there too, by the way. His manager posted something either on X or somewhere and promptly had to remove it because it ended up being
Of course.
lies. Maury Povich saying 100% not the father, not the daddy. That was not true. So I guess time will tell. We can travel where we are, what we're watching on May 4th. It could be one of four names at this point. Now we're throwing out Terence Crawford in the mix, who you never know. So we shall see. Canelo Alvarez. One thing is for certain in the boxing world, no matter what, Canelo Alvarez is in the driver's seat. He can do whatever he wants. Do whatever he wants. But it's for money, and he could sit back and say, I'll fight that taxi cab driver. I don't care. You guys are still gonna pay and watch it, and I'm still gonna make $30+ million.
When your minimum is $35 million,
Wild, isn't it?
that's your minimum. Like, good for him. I love seeing fighters get paid. And honestly, I like Canelo, man. I like his attitude. I like his whole demeanor. I like his work ethic. I like him. Like, I've been a big fan of the guy for the last 3 or 4 years. I didn't used to. When he fought Mayweather, I wasn't a fan of him. After I started watching him post Mayweather, he impressed the hell out of me. And I respect him, and I've become a fan of him as well. I can still be unbiased, but I become a fan of him, and I like what he represents. No boxing, no life. The guy lives in the gym. The guy takes it serious. I love it. Fights everybody. Go on that guy's resume. Please look at Canelo Alvarez's resume and tell me that he's ducking people. Get out of here.
Stupid. You know how it is. Keyboard warriors. That's how it works on the socials. Anyways, weekend traveling. Let me give you this. Throw it back to you on episode 148. Final thoughts.
Hey, it's fun to break some breaking news. I know that. I've been thinking about today's podcast, and it makes me excited to jump on here and get to talk about some serious boxing. And like you said, the month of May is going to be pretty freaking awesome, especially if Usyk and Fury happens, especially if Canelo, whoever he fights, to be honest, because even if he does fight a Berlanga or somebody like that, you're probably going to see a highlight reel knockout.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be fun. So boxing is hitting on all cylinders, even though PBC seems to be falling off. But they are delivering a good fight. Tim Tszyu versus Keith Thurman, I think, is going to be a good fight. Tank Davis is also fighting Frank Martin, not on that card. But that fight got signed as well. Ryan Garcia is fighting Devin Haney. Awesome. These guys are fighting now.
Rolly Romero and Pitbull Cruz, I think,
Isaac Cruz.
Yeah, I think is on the Thurman card, correct? March 30?
Yeah, I believe so. So, like, dude, and that's in March 31st. So Boxy's picking back up again. We're seeing some awesome fights. I think my goal, so I said last year was 2023. It was the Jordan year. It's one of the greatest years we've seen in a long time. I think it delivered, my opinion. So for 2024, what I want to see is I want to see one of these high-level fights right here in Orlando, Florida. That's what I want to see. By the end of 2024, I want to see one of these top guys, one of these world champions, come right here to Orlando and fight. That's what I'm going to see. And you know what? I want to see it at Crib Royale because I like the Box Lab guys. The Box Lab guys have been delivering. Amari and Eric, they've been delivering. So I want them to be a part of it because they're a big part of why boxing has come full circle and came back, and it's here in Central Florida. So I want to see, my prediction or my hope is I want to see a big, high-level legitimate world title fight against some of these guys we've talked about on the show. I want to see it happen right here in Orlando, Florida.
Well, we shall see, I guess. Those are high hopes for 2024 as we're already deep into February and only 10 months to go. So we shall see. Maybe 2025. I don't know. I like to hedge myself a little bit. All right, Weekend Trav. Well, appreciate your final thoughts there. Listen, this is episode 148 of Wayne and Travis Artman. This is the podcast. We have other things we do. We do interviews. We do, short reels, whatever. We are on Instagram. I think Weekend Trav is on the TikTok thing.
We are weighing in with Travis Hartman TikTok.
So if you have yet to subscribe or follow our content, please do. You can just hit the thumb, well, not just the thumb up down low, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumb up, hit the bell icon to be notified anytime we drop new content. We appreciate the support. Comment below. Obviously, there's a big news with Canelo Alvarez PBC and the potential rumored next opponent being maybe Jaime Munguia. It seems like that's going to be the case. We shall see. So comment below. Who do you think it should be? Who do you think? I'm sure anyone that actually comments, everyone's going to be going, Benavidez, blah, blah, blah. Is ducking, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. Comment below. Tell us where we're wrong. Well, Weekend Trav, that's it. 148's in the books. What do you think about that?
We flexing on them haters.
All right, then. Well, that's it. That over there is the talent, Weekend Trav.
That there is B Money, aka producer, aka the man, the myth, the legend. And your beard looks nice.
Why, thank you. God bless. And that's that.